Welcome to the Cinema Dive. Today, I want to talk about one of the most iconic actors in the film industry, and one of my personal favorites, Denzel Washington.
Lights, camera, action.
I don't think there's a single person out there who hasn't seen at least one of his films. The man has over 60 credits to his name. But let's dive in to see how he got his start and what may have influenced his ability to become one of the greatest actors in Hollywood to this day.
King Kong ain't got shit on me!
He's born in 1954 and kind of grew up with humble beginnings. His mother owned a beauty parlor, which she worked at, and he ended up working and helping her at, while his father worked for the city of New York and at the same time being a Pentecostal minister. In fact, growing up super religious, his father never even let him watch normal films. He had to watch Christian films. So, interesting enough, he still was able to get into the film industry anyway. Then, about 14 years old, his parents would unfortunately divorce. And at the time, he was rolling around with people he described as probably not the best of people to run around with, usually getting in trouble with different crimes. And those friends to this day have served probably about 40 years combined in penitentiary. While at the time, his mother decided to send him to military school, which kind of makes sense because you see him and you kind of think of him as a very disciplined actor, and he credits that with being able to be where he is nowadays. And then later in 1977, he got a BA in drama and journalism from Fordham University, and in the same year, he starred in his first film called Wilma, which is where he met Paulette Pearson, who in 1983 he would go on to marry and eventually have 4 kids. Now, as an illustrious film actor as he is in so many iconic films, it'd be interesting to say that his big break actually came from a television series, a medical drama called Saint Elsewhere, where he played Dr. Philip Chandler. Like I said, this was his big breakthrough, was not his first acting gig. Then, while still doing that show, he actually filmed in a movie in 1987 called Cry Freedom, which is what his first Oscar nomination was from. Now, just moving on, we're not going to go into every single movie he has because that would take forever. We're not even going to hit on every single movie he's been nominated for an Oscar for, but we're definitely going to dive into some of those as well as my top favorites, and definitely going to be some spoilers, but not a whole lot. But his first Oscar win came in 1990 when he played Private Trip in the movie Glory. If you haven't seen it, it's a phenomenal movie starring Matthew Broderick, Denzel Washington, and Morgan Freeman. Definitely go give it a watch. In fact, any of the movies I mentioned in this video are definitely worth the watch if you have not seen them. But within a few short years, he had been nominated twice for an Oscar and won one. So at a younger age, you already are seeing him prove himself to have the chops to be one of the Hollywood greats. Now, in 1992, he got nominated for another Oscar for his portrayal of the titular Malcolm X in the self-titled movie Malcolm X. And this movie's a little fascinating because at one point they were considering doing a white actor and black-facing him for the role of Malcolm X, which seems tasteless even by the 90s standards. Luckily, someone wised up and then he got cast for it, and he was directed by the legendary Spike Lee. This would also be the first movie that his son John David would end up going to be in. The other interesting thing is they actually were so dedicated to the film that they actually wanted to film in Mecca as part of Malcolm X's journey in life. And they actually went to Mecca to film, which is interesting because Mecca doesn't allow anyone who's not Muslim in. So they had to work with an entire Muslim crew to film this. That shows you the dedication of not only Denzel, but of Spike Lee himself. Then in 93, he acted alongside the infamous Tom Hanks in the movie Philadelphia, which is a phenomenal movie, once again, if you have not seen it. And it was a movie tackling some controversies at the time. One, it was covering the AIDS and HIV epidemic that was going on in our nation, while having a gay protagonist played by Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks actually said that he felt like he was in an acting school watching Denzel Washington work, learning so much from this man. Which just goes to show you that as great of an actor as Tom Hanks is, he definitely got some of what he learned from Denzel, making Denzel seem that much more impressive of an actor. And Tom Hanks went on to win an Oscar for that role. Then in 1995, he made a little bit of a blunder. Not super big, but he regrets it somewhat to this day. He ended up doing a movie called Crimson Tide with the infamous Gene Hackman along his side, which was a great movie, but at the time he gave up the role to play Brad Pitt's character in the movie Seven. Now, at the time he read the script, and his own words, he said the film felt too demonic. But after seeing the movie come out and watching it, he realized he messed up. Now we're going to jump ahead a few years to the year 2000. One of my favorite films that he's done was Remember the Titans. You have to have seen this one, right? In case you didn't, it was based on a true story about the 1971 Virginia State football champs of T.C. Williams High School, and about their struggles as their first season of being a racially integrated team. Even if you're not a football fan, it's a fantastic movie. It hits you right in the feels and has so many iconic moments, and just go watch it. You've been living under a rock if you haven't seen that one. Then in 2001, he would go on to win his second Oscar for the movie Training Day alongside Ethan Hawke. He's playing this character named Alonzo Harris, who's breaking in the rookie, who is played by Ethan Hawke, and he is a corrupt narcotics officer. And a phenomenal acting job by him. But as we know, sometimes actors get their hands in the scripts and they change things up. A lot of times they make their character and them seem a little bit better. But in this case, he saw the death scene of Alonzo and he was like, I want to change that. He says, this guy is so nasty. He needs a nasty death. The only way he could justify how horrible this person was to make sure that he had just as horrible of a death. I think that's kind of cool that he decided to ramp that up and make it much more cinematic, and possibly could have been the reason that it clinched him the Oscar. Now, jumping to probably my favorite movie of his overall, and probably one of my all-time favorite movies, Man on Fire. A film which he wasn't even nominated for an Oscar for, which I think he should have. The film premise, he's a retired CIA operative who's hired to be a security guard to a young girl played by Dakota Fanning, who, phenomenal child actress of the time. I haven't honestly seen much else of what she's done now that she's grown up, but as far as child actors go, she was definitely one that was good. And that movie pulls at your heartstrings too, because you see connection and a bond from this grizzle-hardened man that Denzel plays to opening up and making a bonding relationship with Fanning's character before being kidnapped and then going on this murderous, violent rampage to get her back. And in the end, well, I won't spoil that because it's really good. I mean, you have Christopher Walken, Mark Anthony, and Mickey Rourke acting alongside Denzel. You gotta go see that one if you have not seen it. Now, for a man who's really known for his action and above all else, he's known for his drama, it'd be surprising to say that actually one of my favorite films by him is a sci-fi. The movie's called Deja Vu, and it deals a lot with time travel in a way. And it's not a full-blown sci-fi. It's much more subtle. It's much more of a thriller drama with a dash of sci-fi in it. Definitely a well worth one. Once again, no nominations for it, but it proves that he has kind of that ability to flex between these different movies. Now, remember back to the fact that he had a very religious father, and sometimes when people grow up with a super strict religious father, they end up breaking away from that religion. But he remained a Christian to today, and in fact, I think that influenced his next film that I'm going to talk about, which is The Book of Eli, which is another sci-fi post-apocalyptic movie with Gary Oldman and Mila Kunis in it. And actually, when I first watched this movie, I did a little bit of looking into it because that's when I really started breaking out and learning more about movies than just the A and B, and found out that he did most of his own fighting stunts for the film, and then learned later that he ended up doing most of his own stunts throughout Hollywood. Now, granted, a lot of actors do end up doing this, and it's pretty cool when they do it, but there's still limitations on what, insurance will allow you to do, unless your name's Tom Cruise. But still, it's cool to learn that he was willing to do all the choreography to learn how to do fight scenes, because when you actually see the characters actual doing the stunts and you tell it's not a CGI face or that it's not a body double, it just immerses you that much more into the film. And the last film I'm going to mention about his for this is, of course, The Magnificent Seven. Now, once again, no nominations, but I am a big fan of spaghetti westerns, and I love this retelling of one of my favorite. He's playing Sam Chisholm, and he's acting alongside rising star Chris Pratt at the time. And at the time, they were doomed to fail, is what basically every critic in the industry was talking about. They said, no, the Western's dead. Don't do Westerns. Don't do them. And yet, it was such a box office hit. Now, there are many critiques with the film about its historical inaccuracy, among a slew of other things. However, I'm going to let you read this one critique right here for just a second. I do understand that back in this time, a lot of these prejudices would have existed and could have caused tension. However, this town is being oppressed, and violently so. And in the wake of the fact that several of their people had died and that they were afraid of losing their livelihoods, maybe along with their lives, I would assume that they would put aside their prejudices to see that these men know how to fight and know how to teach them to fight in order to save their town and hopefully their lives as well. So I don't think that this critique is valid in my opinion. So it proves that maybe if you do it the right way, Westerns aren't dead. And maybe if you have Denzel as your lead, he'll do okay. Now, literally, I could probably spend an hour-long video talking about all of his Oscar-nominated films, including his new one that just came out, Tragedy of Macbeth, which he was nominated for an Oscar for. I still haven't seen that one, but it looks really phenomenal. I need to go watch it. But the man is a living legend. Literally one of the top Oscar-nominated actors. Just looking at where he places among actors who have been nominated, he's like number 7. Obviously, the most nominated actress in the world is Meryl Streep, followed by Katharine Hepburn, Jack Nicholson, Bette Davis, Laurence Olivier, and Spencer Tracy. And then him, which puts him ahead of actors that you would think might have been even higher than he was, like Al Pacino, Glenn Close, Judi Dench, Robert De Niro. The list goes on of the actors who fall below how many nominations he has. He has a total of 9 nominations with 2 wins. That's just phenomenal in and of itself. And overall, there's not much bad to be said about the man. Not only is he a phenomenal actor, but he's a phenomenal human being and a huge philanthropist. In fact, one charity he gave to was specifically going to a single person. It was for black performers who were accepted into a program, and basically the money would go to pay for an entire summer of their schooling. And it just happened to be the donation that he made went to a actor, little known actor, known Chadwick Boseman. I mean, the Black Panther. In fact, at an event that was honoring Denzel Washington, Chadwick Boseman would go on to say the following.
There is no Black Panther without Denzel Washington.
So the man's literally affecting a massive industry and a massive franchise that he's not even part of. He was made an honorary member of the military, which was due to his work with the Fisher House Foundation, which provided free homes for military families while they were receiving medical care. And this year, he's due to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Now, I know people don't like these honorary titles, and most people will just shirk them off, but I mean, this does show you that as a human being, he's trying to give back more than others have. He's trying to show that he appreciates what everyone else has done for him by going and seeing his movies and supporting him by giving back as much as he can. And as far as his legacy carrying through his children, his 2 daughters are into the industry. One is an actor, one is a producer. But of course, John David is one of the ones that we see popping up everywhere. Obviously famous for the movies Tenet and Black Klansman. Both are phenomenal movies and definitely worth going watching. And even though he hasn't been nominated for one yet, I feel an Oscar nomination coming around for John David eventually. And rolling back to the fact that Denzel just seems to have everything on lockdown. What I mean by that is just that there was no ever controversy or anything going on behind the scenes with him. He seemed to be a straight shooter and was super dedicated to his work, which once again I think is a attribution to his mother putting him in military school, which gave him the discipline, for one, to keep himself off the streets, keep himself from falling into a life of what his old friends were dealing with, and pushing him towards a path where he became this legendary actor that we know today. And of course, even though it is mentioned that his father was strict, it seems like the lessons learned from him and from the faith that he has also helped him along his path and life and journey, and probably influenced a few of the films that he starred in. And looking back on a career that has spanned nearly 5 decades, we just see a man who was built for Hollywood. Some people are just born with that gene that puts them on the big silver screen, and we love watching them. And the box office tells us that we do. Tells us that he is a phenomenal star. Whether you really like his movies or not, I guarantee you there's at least one out there that you've watched that you're at least a fan of. Now, I do hope this gives you a little bit of insight into his life, of why he's made his decisions and what he does and how he does everything he does. That's a lot of saying does. But these dives into these actors has at least given me a little bit more insight into why they've chosen films they do, how they've been able to accomplish pulling off multiple Oscar wins and multiple Oscar nominations. And I mean, there's probably so much more I could tell you, but I couldn't fit it into a short YouTube video, and I don't want to rant on for an hour. But I guarantee you that if you go to any one of your streaming apps and you scroll through or search for him, you'll find some of his movies, and I guarantee you you're going to enjoy at least one, if not a dozen more, if you just go down and sit down for the weekend and just take a look at his work if you've never done so. Or even if you have, go check out something new. Like I said, the Tragedy of Macbeth is out now, and I've been wanting to actually check it out. I just need to go do it. And of course, any of the movies I mentioned in this video are definitely among my favorites, and I think you should go check those out. But that's enough said. I want to thank you so much for watching the video if you stuck through it to the end. consider hitting that subscribe button, hit that like button. Those really help out small channels like mine. So anytime you stumble across someone small trying to make it, those little two things really boost the channel's awareness and gets us out to the rest of the people who might enjoy our content. And if you want to leave down in the comments below and let me know other actors you want to know about, maybe other movies you want to know about, or just general comments you have for me, would love to hear from you. But you all have a wonderful day.